I've often said that the best thing about being Prime Minister is the unparalleled opportunity I have to travel the length and breadth of this vast country and to meet the wonderful people who call it home. Today, in these travels, as the Speaker mentioned, we are undertaking a first. In all the years since 1871, when British Columbia made that momentous decision to join the new Dominion and to truly make it a country from sea to sea, no Prime Minister has ever formally addressed this great assembly. And I want to thank the Speaker of the House for providing me with this opportunity. Sir, you do me, and in fact, all of you do me, a very great honor, and I appreciate it. So here we are in the Legislative Assembly of British Columbia. British Columbia. Canadians from coast to coast to coast have known you for decades by the slogan on your license plates. Beautiful British Columbia. It is no exaggeration. The natural beauty is almost always the first thing people notice about British Columbia when they arrive. The famous Canadian historian and essayist Stephen Leacock put it rather well a very long time ago, describing his maiden trip to BC in his book entitled My Discovery of the West. He recalled a question that had been posed to him at a Canadian club function in Vancouver. I was asked why. He said, I had never visited the province before. I said that like so many other people, I'd never come to it because I didn't realize how wonderful it was. If I had known what it was like, I wouldn't have been content with a mere visit. I would have been born here. BC's unmatched beauty and its promise of a better life has never lost its power to enchant and to enthrall and to draw ever more newcomers to its sparkling shores. It began with the myriad nations of our first peoples whose spirit has animated this land for thousands of years. It continued with the great explorers John Finlay, Simon Fraser, Alexander Mackenzie, David Thompson, those who sought to connect it to the wider economic forces of the continent. It captured the imagination of a generation of adventurers who traveled enormous distances when gold was discovered on the Fraser River. And it was at Craigellachie where the last spike of the Canadian Pacific Railway, the single most important nation-building project in the history of our country, was driven. And ladies and gentlemen, British Columbia is still calling out now to all of the peoples of the world. From a sparsely populated outpost of our country, BC has become the third largest province, boasting one of the most cosmopolitan and livable cities in the world, still growing fast, and leading Canada's way into a new century, a century that will be defined by the opportunities of the Asia-Pacific region, for which British Columbia is Canada's gateway. How the generation of 1871, John Foster McCreight, Amour de Cosmos, and all the rest, how they must marvel at the British Columbia of 2010. The British Columbia with the talent, with the energy, with the capability to host huge world-class events like the Olympic Games that will be open tomorrow. You know, events like these have a significance beyond themselves. They serve as historic markers of where a community is going and how its people see themselves. For instance, to visit British Columbia and Vancouver, even now, is to be reminded of Expo 86. Most of you will recall that World's Fair and what it meant. At a time when Asia was beginning to demonstrate its capacity to become a future economic powerhouse, that event put your province and our country on the map of the Pacific. That World's Fair showcased this part of our country, and we all remember the surge in investment and population that followed. But it also changed British Columbia. British Columbia became bolder, stronger, possessed of the shining confidence that is a consequence of success and so necessary to scale even greater heights. Now you're calling the world back once again in even more spectacular fashion. During the Olympic and Paralympic Games, 6,800 athletes and team officials, 10,000 reporters, and 250,000 spectators will gather in Vancouver and Whistler. By any measure, these are remarkable gatherings, yet a mere recitation of the numbers hardly do them justice. The 2010 Winter Olympic and Paralympic Games has been an unparalleled organizational and logistical undertaking. They will be simply the most ambitious sporting event ever undertaken in this country. The work of the Vancouver Olympic Organizing Committee, in conjunction with its partners at all levels of government, federal, provincial, municipal, our 4 host First Nations, is itself a feat worthy of the ancient Olympiads that these games honor. Like the earlier Expo, this is a tremendous accomplishment. And also like it, we cannot yet know how these games will change us or what their legacy will be. But we do know this, ladies and gentlemen, that British Columbia has made enormous strides in the early years of the 21st century. It has grown exponentially, gathered economic strength, and become more important in confederation than at any time in the history of this country. And it is not hard to predict that in some distant year, when British Columbians reflect upon these games, you will see them as an affirmation of what you have achieved and as your point of departure into a new and exciting era. On behalf of the Government of Canada and indeed all Canadians, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the organization of the 2010 Olympic and Paralympic Games and those who have supported them, including those of you right here in this chamber, for a job well done, a job very well done. Je veux aussi vous dire que tous les Canadiens et toutes les Canadiennes sont fiers d'être partenaires de ces Jeux. Que ce soit sur la forme de l'infrastructure des lieux, de fonds patrimoniaux, d'événements culturels,
heritage funds or cultural events are here its essential qualities. Every Canadian through the Government of Canada have invested as required to make sure that this event may be of a world-class event, because these games are Canada's games.
I also want to tell you that all Canadians are proud to be partners in these games, be it in the form of venue infrastructure, legacy funds, cultural events, or the essential security arrangements. All Canadians, through the Government of Canada, have made the investments needed to ensure a world-class event. Because, well, Vancouver and Whistler may be the staging grounds of the 2010 Olympic and Paralympic Winter Games. Let there be no doubt, as Premier Campbell said himself in December when we welcomed the Olympic flame to Parliament Hill, these games are Canada's games.